Well, welcome back to the Happy, Healthy Hustle podcast, where we explore the intersection of health, happiness, and productivity. I'm your host, Christiana, and I'm super excited. We have a very special guest here today. But before I get started with the guest, let's do our podcast fan of the week. And I'm going to read the review by this podcast fan that's called MORTU, so Mortu. The title of the review is Unlock Your Zen in 1 minute. And the review reads, listen to 1 Minute Mantra episode. This episode was a real game changer. It introduced me to the power of 1 Minute Mantra for stress relief and focus. So many golden nuggets and helpful tips. A must listen. So I hope that you check out this podcast episode about the 1 Minute Mantra. And I'm also so appreciative about Mortu leaving this amazing review. If you have not left your review yet, go ahead and do that because we give those fans a shout out. We totally appreciate it. It's always like a nice little mantra to myself when I read those reviews. But with that, let's get started with our guest here today. We have Nate Smidt, and let's introduce yourself here. Welcome.
Yeah, so my name is Nate Smidt. I'm going into my last year at Cal Poly. I'm an agricultural business major, and I just recently opened up my own store in downtown SLO.
Amazing. So now you can immediately see the tie-in. We have the Happy, Healthy Hustle, and here we have a college student that's hustling, full-time college student, I have to say, and running a business, a store in downtown SLO. And so just to give you some context here, running a store in downtown SLO is not an easy and inexpensive or, a task you just pick up just like that. So, Nate, you must have some true superpowers. What do you think is your superpower? How would you describe that if somebody were to ask you, you got all that done?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it, like doing the student, all of that. I think my superpower would be multitasking. Even though I've always not been great at it. I think that throughout this process, I've been able to get better. And I think multitasking during a week, because maybe during the day I'm not the best, but spacing out what I do during a week between my duties at my store, school. I have a girlfriend, my family, going and seeing my family, and then hanging out with friends like a normal college kid. It's like being able to balance all of that stuff in a week is definitely super hard task, but I think my superpower helps me make it a little easier.
Oh, I love it. You're kind of putting it in perspective, because what we tend to do is that we are, perfectionists. We look at one task and we're like, well, could have maybe done this better. Or, no, I don't know about this. But you're kind of like looking at, well, on an average, I really got stuff done, right? Mm-hmm. So through the week, when I look at my schedule, it just kind of all happened.
Right.
Was it perfect? No, but you know what? It was perfectly imperfect, and that's
exactly.
You just get shit done. So that you're checking it off. And you're like, you know what? It got done, and that might be better than somebody else that was like, I'm still working on it, because you just did it. So tell us a little bit about challenges. What was the biggest challenge and why?
So the biggest challenges I think is that we did this at such a young age. I have 3 other business partners, and all of us were under 21. And when we first started doing stuff, when you start a business, it's like everyone's like, no, don't do that. That's not a good idea. They have no vision of the future. They're just like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? And one of the biggest things I remember is that we went into the business. We went into Bank of America because I wanted to open up a corporate account. And when we walk in, I see the receptionist, and she's like, "What are you guys here for?" And I'm like, "Oh, we're here to open up a business bank account." And she like laughs at me, and I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "You have all the paperwork?" I'm like, "I have it right here." And she's like, "All right, well then here's Mr. Ramirez." And I walk into his office, and he was super cool. But there's definitely been multiple moments throughout this entire process that definitely people like don't they see us as really young, or they don't like believe that, like, even when we would tell people we had a store downtown, they were like, no, you don't. Like, there's no way. So just little stuff like that. It's just definitely challenging to, but
Yeah, and what I love is there is that reality check. There are always going to be doubters and they're going to be the cheerleaders. And sometimes the doubters are amazing because it kind of like makes you filter out, is that really a good idea? But I love your perseverance in keeping on going despite all the doubters. Kind of thinking, no, I know this is a good idea. So tell us a little bit more about what you're actually selling, because I think that in itself, this is like a superpower, how you found your niche right there. What is your store all about? And you're obviously thriving in your store. So
yeah,
a little bit from the very beginning to how you're now
where we are now.
building like a 1 minute story arc here.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd start with me coming to Cal Poly. I came to school, not a lot of money, wanted to allocate my money towards, what was the best. And I was like, I'm spending so much money on clothes. I want more money to go eat with my friends, go hang out, do events, surfing, whatever it may be that costs money for gas. So I was like, okay, I'll spend less money on clothes. So I started going to, Goodwill bins, Goodwill with me and all my buddies would go freshman year. We'd like all get in one of my friends' cars in the dorms and we'd all drive together. But one time I found this, like, my favorite brand's always been Stussy. I'm wearing it right now. But
Nice.
I found this Stussy windbreaker and it was like $3. And I grabbed it and I looked it up and it was like $120, $130 online. And I'm just like, what? Like, it's crazy how you can, like, if you look right, you can find stuff that like people really want. And that started, I mean, I just started going all the time, every once in a while to just get more clothes. And then I had one of my friends move over and we both had a bunch of clothes and we decided one of my friends was having like a pop-up and we were like, hey, we can go, get some of our clothes out of our closet. And we made a little bit of money, and we thought it was a lot of money, but we sit there and we're like, dang, okay, like maybe there's a market for this. And after that, we were, reinvesting, spending way more money. We did a pop-up on Dexter Lawn at Cal Poly, and that time we made like twice as much money. And we were like, what? Still thinking we're like big, like we made it, with like a couple $100.
And so obviously now in your store, you're probably much more selective in terms of what you're selling, right?
100%. Like, there was literally
about recent sales, or there was a fun, like I would call like nearly Cinderella story right there. I want to hear that.
So, another thing is that we just kind of, everything's always just kind of worked out for us. We got this store in a year, so everything's just all the chips have aligned for us. And with the summer coming, we kind of weren't fully anticipating how all of our market was going to be gone. All these college kids were going to be gone. And we are buy, sell, trade. And one of the miraculous stories was, we were kind of struggling to get more clothes in without spending too much money and, doing all that stuff. And we were like, oh, dang. And, we buy this pair of pants off a guy that comes in the store. And it's a pair of Levi jeans, right? And like they're Big E Levi's, which is like, I guess, a more rare form of the pants. And, we start asking people how much they're worth. And, we end up selling these pants for couple tens of $1,000s. And we're like, what? Like, so I think there's definitely been other items. Like, this guy came in with a bunch of old rock tees, and he brings in this one Prince tour t-shirt, and we buy it for, a little bit of money, and we look online and it's worth $1,000, $2,000, and we're like, what? Like, it's just crazy how there's definitely like little stuff, but we try to be, like you said, being selective, and then so we're very selective with how we spend the big money with like stuff like that, the Prince tee, the Levi pants, and then it's being so like semi-selective into a price range that we think our customers will consume, right? Because nobody's walking in and buying a $1,200 shirt. No one's walking in and like, oh, so we're trying to hit that price range for college students to be able to get something from like the $30 to $40 range. Because like, online they're selling for 60, 70, but we're getting them for a lot cheaper. And we're like, okay, we're trying to bring something that you would actually love. Like, you're not just buying a random shirt and being like, oh, I'll just wear this on Tuesday. You're like, I just found my new favorite shirt. And that's kind of the thing that we try to do.
So I love, and it's kind of like somebody's trash is your treasure, so to speak.
100%.
And
Yeah.
there is a couple of things I really like. One is you're really doing like a repurposing strategy, which is very green, of course. We don't want to, constantly buy new clothing from a place to where you might not even wear it very long. There's no story behind the shirt. But what you're really doing is you're recycling clothing, so you're turning them around. And at the same time, there is that second part, that element to it, to where there is a meaning behind the shirt. Maybe, as you mentioned, it's your favorite brand. Maybe deep down you're a Prince fan. Maybe you got that from your family. So there's a connection that each clothing item has. And I sometimes say, if clothing or furniture could talk, it would just be so amazing to hear who owned this before. And where did they buy? Did they buy it at the Prince concert? And I mean, Prince passed away now many years ago. But, you would love to know sometimes, like, what happened to this? And nearly like with cars, where you look up, the history of the owners. It's just so neat if that would exist with clothing. You're like, oh my gosh, it was purchased there and I can't believe it. So
you sit around all the time, and we're just like we had this jacket literally last night, and we looked at it. We got it in LA 2 weekends ago, and we're looking at it. It's like 1944, and we're just like, and on the inside it says like, a bunch of Army line, or I think Air Force lines, and we're just like, was this like an actual pilot's, or is this just like a remake, or like, can't ask the clothes, so we don't know, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so if you think of some way that you could connect the story to the clothing, and as I say, if clothing could talk or whatever, you could figure this out. I don't know, one day maybe artificial intelligence will help us. Where you can scan the clothing and it goes back.
No doubt.
Nearly like a QR code type thing with fruits and vegetables, so where you can scan it and see where it was grown. I do that a lot with my produce, or with wine sometimes, where you can figure out where the grapes were harvested. That would be cool with clothing. Well, we are not there yet. So right now we're just going to your store and we're just amazed that these wonderful pieces of clothing exist. And I love how you segmented your target market. And thinking about marketing, you're very strategic in terms of the price point, the product, and how you promote your store, of course, and your store being right downtown in San Luis Obispo, which is abbreviated as SLO, being in a perfect prime location right there. So I would love to know how you obviously got started by self-motivation, but was there another person in your life that influenced you to do this?
Yeah, definitely my dad. Growing up, he would always talk about, different stuff, and I think I'd always get that the entrepreneurship characteristic from him. I just always, when my parents had me when they were really young, and the first thing that they did was go right to work, and they provided for me, and I have three little brothers, so it's a crazy house. They gave up their dreams to help us achieve ours, and that watching that like kind of hurts, because you don't really get it till you're older, and you're just like, dang, that sucks. And my dad a year ago started working on his own brewery, and it's like, dang, that was I'm 21 now, so 21 years later he's finally getting the chance to do what Nate Smidt the first wants to do, not always worried about, Nate Smidt the second. So, yeah, definitely my dad and seeing what he gave up, and my mom too, what she gave up. My mom, stay-at-home mom all throughout my life, and my dad was always working in Utah or Colorado, so he wasn't around much in high school, but he was just working to provide for us. And my mom held down the pack and took care of us every day, and something that we really needed.
I love it. And I met them in the store. I went there on the opening, and I took my two daughters along and bought them actually some shirts. And Nate, I need to send you those amazing pictures that I took the other day. My young daughter was wearing the shirt that I wore in the promotional video that you filmed, and my older daughter wore the t-shirt that we bought at your amazing store. So they are like walking advertisements for you, and they absolutely adore the merchandise. So you're doing an amazing job in bringing clothing in that really resonates with them. So I truly appreciate all your insight right there. So now, of course, we're wondering, how can we get in touch with you? Where can we find that store? Is there a website and special social media where we can find out more about you? Because you're so inspiring. We want to learn more.
No, so some things we're working on right now. I mean, we already have our Instagram in place. So, I mean, if anyone wants to check out who we are, what our story a little bit and all that stuff, our Instagram is at Central Coast VTG. And that's Central Coast VTG, not vintage. It's VTG because vintage was already taken. And then we also are working on a website right now that we're hoping is going to be out in the next 2 weeks. And that's just centralcoastvintage.com. And yeah, last but not least, I think we're also working on setting up a YouTube channel too, so we can have all these little things that each one of us have kind of been a part of, and put all of the videos onto one place. So if anyone's ever interested in looking at, something that we've done, they can just go onto the YouTube and see. And then we're also working on that promotional video, which you were a part of, and we were so grateful for that. And yeah, so we're hoping that we're going to get the website and all that stuff up in the next 2 weeks, and then have that promotional video to, put us back out there marketing wise. And yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot going on, and you're an unstoppable hustler coming from a family of hustlers. I absolutely love it. We're going to put all those contacts into the show notes so that the audience, you can keep in touch with Nate and follow his wonderful journey. I always say we are buying stories. We're not buying just products. And your story definitely inspires us to check out a little bit more of what you're up to. And I'm sure this is just the beginning of your trajectory. So I'm very grateful that we did this interview today. And I'm sure the audience absolutely adored listening to this as well. But with that, we're at the end of our episode here today. Happy, healthy hustlers. Thanks so much for listening and tuning in. And I hope that you're staying healthy and well and keep hustling. And I look forward to hearing you on the next episode. Thank you.